death, and aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney.
And I'm MK.
And how are you today?
You know, I'm okay. I'm tired,
Oh, heard. Gosh.
like all the time. I Over the weekend, Dan and I were putting together our registry for the wedding or whatever, and I literally he called me and was like, "We need to put stuff on the registry." And I go, "Can I just have one day where somebody doesn't fucking need something from
The answer is no.
me?" No, apparently not. But we are officially cleared to close. We have our mortgage. Everything is set there. Um,
It's very exciting.
and yeah, I make more money.
All good things, all good things.
Yeah, it is good things. I'm just tired. It's crazy. Like our first week of school was 4 full days, which is stupid. Nobody taught anything. I don't know why we did 4 full days of school. That should be illegal.
Mhm.
But
I agree.
today, not only was it the first Monday of the first full week of school, it was also like thunderstormy and gloomy and like it was the Mondayest of all Mondays, and I was
Yeah.
fucking over it. And we
Yeah,
had
we
a
have a
fire
hurricane
drill.
coming through.
And we had a fire drill, and this is the first time
Why?
I've had
It's
a
like the
fire
first
drill.
day.
It's not though. We had a whole week last week. It was the first fire drill I've ever had that had more like last time I had a fire drill, there was 90 kids.
Mhm.
There might have been 90 kids on the stairs with me. It was it was interesting. It
They
goes
used to
mu
do
it
a
goes
fire
much
drill
slower. It goes
with a lot of kids.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, they used to do it every like quarter TRO. It felt like it was much more often than that, but I think it was every quarter. And I just stopped going.
You
I was
know,
like, I cannot today.
it's wild because as children, we're like programmed to be like, oh my God, the fire alarm, leave the building.
Hmm.
And I also work in a school. So, like, the fire alarm, you leave the building. But, like, in real life, people don't do that. Like, whenever the fire alarm went off in my apartment building, I literally just turned the volume of my TV up louder so I couldn't hear the fire alarm. Like, I didn't go outside. I was on the second floor. If there was a fire, they could get to me.
Yeah. I mean, I was in
Like,
the 17th floor, so if there was a fire, I was in trouble. But they were like, we're going to test a fire drill. Everyone meet in the hall to meet with your fire safety person. And I was like, I know this guy better than I know people I work with right now. So I don't need to meet him again.
yeah.
I could tell you his spiel. I know it word for word.
Yeah,
Feel like I'm okay.
if my apartment had a fire safety person, they did not speak the same language I did, so it wasn't helpful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so how are you?
Also tired, but I've gotten rid of the terrible coffee and I have switched to black tea in my new Powell's mug. Like how cute this is.
That
It
is
looks
cute.
like a tea bag, but it's a book.
That's adorable,
Um, so I had to have it, obviously. So
obviously.
I've switched to black tea because I will be working when we get off of here. Um, but I'm okay. It is Halloween. It's time.
Okay.
Um, so the second Beetlejuice movie has come out.
That's right.
I haven't seen it yet,
Me
but it
either.
is what started Halloween. I did, however, go to a Beetlejuice party this weekend,
Yes.
and it was so much fun. I drank dirty martinis. I have not drank in a while, and now I've told two stories of me drinking in the past week. Like I'm celebrating Halloween, I guess. Um, but
I I told my boss, not my like one of my bosses, one of the assistant principals at the school. She came Friday night was the eighth grade dance, And
Hmm.
she came to pick up walkie-talkies for the football team because the football walkie-talkies weren't out of the shop yet or something. And she literally goes, "They're so lucky I didn't have my vodka cranberry before I came back here because I would not be coming back for their things." And I said, I don't often feel this way, but in lunch duty today, I looked at my water bottle and asked why it wasn't tequila. She goes, "Welcome to Ken West."
Nice. Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Um, no, I love it. I've missed my dirty martinis. I haven't had them in a while, so then I had to have more. But we had like there was like two drinks left of vodka for the dirty martini, and I had blue cheese olives, so it was like the perfect combination. And then my alternative was a pre-mixed espresso martini. Like I was just living my best life. But we go to this party, and me and Rachel and Stella are like the only three that have dressed up, but we look amazing.
Yeah. I
And
only saw
there's a
your outfit,
picture.
but I agree.
Yeah. There's a picture somewhere out there of us. Who's to say where? I didn't take it. But we were fashionably late because we were getting ready, but we looked ballin', and they had the movie playing, and they had like little snack foods and cakes, and we hung out, and I met a few more of the friend group that I had met before. Um, Mostly tangential family members. But I did have my handbook to finish off my look.
I love
And then I
it.
immediately threw it in the bag after I showed everyone because I was like, this can't get left here because it is my Hannibal book. We have to make sure this gets back in the bag and goes home.
Correct.
But yeah, and then we played like stayed up late and played Uno, and it was just a good time. And then we had Sunday fun day football, and the Saints killed for their first game. I killed for my first week of fantasy football. We had some friends come over and we made wings and buffalo chicken dip. And it's just been one of those like,
And I made buffalo chicken dip
oh,
also.
it's amazing. We have so much of it. I'll probably have some tonight when we get off. But it was just like
Sorry.
one of
Just
those,
really
yeah,
quickly, fuck you, Brock Purdy. If
not
you
me. Okay.
don't if you don't stop throwing the ball to Deebo Samuel, we're gonna have a fucking problem.
Yeah, you're on your last game.
Yeah.
My games are done. I won. But yeah, it was like a really nice, like, oh, this is what it feels like to like be home
Yeah.
weekend. Because it was just like hanging out with friends, and it was like little get-togethers that were easy and like just fun and just relaxed. And it was a good weekend, catching up with a lot of people that I haven't talked to in a while, and makes me not want to leave for New York on Thursday, but I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. I've already booked a flight.
Yes.
Unless this hurricane gets me, and then I will not be going. And so we'll see.
Well,
We have a
yeah.
hurricane a brewing. I don't know what it's gonna be because I honestly haven't looked at it much other than to see like, is it still gonna be here on Thursday or not? And I'm getting mixed signals, so
Got it. Got it.
we'll see. But yeah, so we might have a hurricane, but I'm sure it's fine. Rachel and Nick have a gas stove, so we can at least still like eat food if the electricity goes out.
That's fair.
Might also die of a heat stroke, but you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, at least you'll die full.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so even though I'm already in a top-notch mood for the day, can you give me a little more enlightenment?
Sure. We're at a beginning quote, which usually is a depressing one, but this one really isn't.
Okay.
So I have an aunt who, whenever she poured anything for you, would say when. My aunt would say when, and of course, we never did. We don't say when because there's something about the possibility of more. More tequila, more love, more anything. More is better.
Oh, that's so sweet. I really like that.
Yeah,
I'm opening up myself to more love
good.
and tequila and
Also,
whatnot.
very quickly, for those of you who followed the saga of Sunday's episode where I desperately couldn't think of a word, the word was expendable.
Yeah, yeah, we got
I,
there.
I figured it out between episodes, so it didn't require an aggressive attack at Courtney, but I
It
did
was
want,
slightly aggressive at me. It's just not recorded.
right, so I just wanted to
So,
share that with all of you.
yeah, I had already forgotten. So,
Because you had to go make your tea.
I had to go make my tea, so I was distracted past that. Um, I do have a little bit of news for you before we get into the episode. So you know how we were talking about Crystal Lake, the Friday the 13th prequel that Brian Fuller was showrunner on and working on?
Yeah.
Um, he got fired, so he is not going to be the showrunner. It is someone I had not heard of, but they were also the showrunner for Welcome to Derry, which
Okay.
is a prequel of It. Um,
Okay.
so we'll see how that goes, but it is no longer Brian Fuller.
Okay. Okay.
Um, so we'll see if we like it or not. But while we still have Brian Fuller, we are talking about Hannibal season 2, episode 8, Suzakana. It air, which is a small plate palate cleanser. So it's like having veggies soaked in vinegar.
Okay.
Um, an amuse bouche, if you will. So it aired April 18th, 2014, not 2024, like I wrote down.
Oh,
Um,
April 18th, that's my mom's birthday.
happy birthday, Kay, 10 years ago. Um, it was rated 8.4 out of 10. So we've also gone down. This is the first episode that wasn't 9.2.
Yeah.
We've dropped down a bit, which is fair. It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I will say this episode, I didn't care as much. Like
Yeah.
compared to where we've been at this season and how like on edge and like invested I was, I definitely felt myself drifting to my phone more this episode than I have.
Yeah, I think it feels like it might be like a setting up episode. And so they were just
Hmm.
like, we're gonna set you up for some stuff, but instead of actually like giving you an episode.
Yeah.
Um, Rachel's just asked me if I need anything from Walmart, and I don't think I do. Have I
Mm.
told you anything recently that I needed that I'm out of?
No. No, you
Okay,
have not.
cool that I'm telling her now. Our number one song is Still Happy by Pharrell for all of time.
Jesus Christ.
I've been like, this song keeps coming up this week because I started a new playlist and I went to like 90s, 2000s R&B and hip hop and all of this. And like, so Pharrell keeps showing up and I'm like, not happy. That's not a song that's added to this playlist.
No, no, no.
I don't, if I never listen to that song again,
I
I think
would
I'd be okay.
no, yeah, it wouldn't be soon enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Our number one movie is still Captain America Winter Soldier, which is super fun. Great movie. I talk about it all the time. I do have a Marvel update for you. I've been watching the hell out of Marvel lately, and
have you?
I have been, and I've now just finished season 1 of Jessica Jones, and I'm starting season 2 of Daredevil. Which
Uh,
I'd watched the first season of Jessica Jones before, but I was rewatching it because I hadn't watched it in a long time.
well,
Mm.
interestingly, Dan doesn't understand how my brain works. He really, really doesn't.
Well, this is
And
hard.
he doesn't understand how difficult it is for me to just like stop in the middle of a show and watch something else. But he
Yeah.
will get bored of things. So we'll be in the middle of like 8 things because he wants to watch something. And so we started watching Daredevil and we like season 1, which I've never watched any of the Marvel TV shows before.
I really like
So,
Daredevil.
so we've watched, I think, 3 episodes and I'm liking it. But he'll be like, "Oh, you don't really seem like you want to be watching this right now." And I'm like, because I don't, because I'm 14 episodes behind on Big Brother and 4 episodes behind on The Bachelorette, and I know you won't watch those with me and you're in the room. So like, no, honestly, I don't want to be watching Daredevil right now. I'm sorry. I love you.
Yeah, I just started season 2, which I have not watched. I've only
Okay.
watched season 1. But I love it. And Rosario
No.
Dawson is in Daredevil,
Yeah,
and
I mean, it's great. We actually the first episode Rosario Dawson was in, Ben prompted me to force him to listen to the entire Josie and the Pussycat soundtrack. Um,
love that for you.
yeah, and I mean, and I love Kingpin as a character. So like I'm not mad about it. It's just we still have a season and a half of The West Wing, or 2.5 seasons of The West Wing to watch. And I have all of my own reality TV to catch up on.
Yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
like,
I get that. Rachel keeps trying to assign me new shows to watch because the new season of Emily in Paris is coming out. And she's like, you have to catch up. And then we were watching The Resident, and she was like, you need to like watch it. And there's something else she wanted me to watch too. And I just keep watching my Marvel shows. The ones I've already seen that I'm rewatching.
But you've also been doing a Marvel rewatch for like 17 years.
Right. But I
That,
also watched Jessica Jones when it came out, and I watched Daredevil more recently, but then I forgot because I have no brain power, so I went back and I
right.
rewatched them.
Yeah.
Um, but
People
yeah,
suck. Just let us be
so
neurotic in
just
peace.
let us be neurotic. Like it's that's all I ask for. That's all I ask for. And the number one book is The King by the Word.
By the who?
Hold please.
Okay.
Okay. I moved my microphone a little closer on accident because I readjusted everything and now I keep hitting it.
Ah.
J.R. Ward, who I've
Okay.
never read their books. On this day, not nearly as exciting as your day last week, but some things have happened. Um, there was a Mount Everest avalanche that was insane. I feel like you'll probably remember it if you like thought about it. Like 12 people died. It was a big deal. Yes.
One of my ENL students is from Nepal, and I told him that I was planning a trip, but it got canceled because of COVID, and he just goes, "Were you going to see the big mountain?" And the idea of like living somewhere and growing up in a place where Mount Everest is just so normal that it's just the big
A
mountain,
big mountain.
I cried. I was like, I'm obsessed.
That's amazing. I love that so much. Um, yes, goes to the big mountain. This is also the day that Texas seized Warren Jeff's ranch. So he had already been arrested at this point, but the LDS stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. But this is when they seized his ranch. And Chelsea Clinton announced a pregnancy.
She had a kid?
Yep, so it seems. So it
Huh.
seems.
Where the
Yeah.
fuck have I been?
Well, it was 2014, so you may have been drinking
Yeah, in April of
in New York
2014.
City.
No, in April of 2014, I was actively working in the theater and at Dairy Queen. So, yeah, I was probably just drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the things that have happened on this day. Our director is new. It is Vincenzo Natali, who's known for Cube, which is one of the movies I watched last year in my October horror movie watch. And In the Tall Grass, Cypher, and Splice.
Okay.
However, he also directed 2 episodes of Lock and Key, which is amazing for those of you who watch it. I know I've recommended it like 17 times, but I'm just going to keep doing it. Um, but he also wrote an episode, or also directed an episode of Hemlock Grove. So you've talked about him before
Okay,
because
that makes sense. I was like, I've
mhm, he
definitely.
directed season 2, episode 2, Gone Sis, which is the one where Miranda arrives. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yup, sure does. Our writers are still Scott Nemerfro and Steve Lightfoot, and our editor is still Michael Dougherty. So it's just the director that's new, which
Okay.
means that everything that's weird is his fault. Um, our guest star is Jeremy Davies, who plays Peter Bernardoni.
Okay.
Um, he is known for Saving Private Ryan, Solaris, Twister, and Secretary. However, most other people probably know him because he is in 13 episodes of Sleepy Hollow, which I have on our maybe list
Right.
um, to cover. And he was in 34 episodes of Lost. He is Dr. someone.
Was he like the main guy in Sleepy Hollow?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Um, but he was the doctor on Lost, and he studied physics and math for Lost. So like all of the physics equations and math equations that he writes out in the notebook on the island are things that he actually came up with
Oh no.
because
Yeah.
he is very meticulous when he like acts on a role.
Oh no, he was not the main guy
Well,
in Sleepy Hollow. Um, and to be honest with you, I've seen every episode of Lost multiple times.
right.
Saying the doctor doesn't mean shit to me.
I understand that. It's doctor. I think his name started with a D. I thought you'd maybe just start naming doctors and I could tell you which one it
I don't
was.
remember anybody's name. Um,
Well, I
I
think
mean,
he may have been early on. We'll see.
oh, he was Dr. Faraday. Yes, I do know who
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
I was like, if you say it, I'll know it. I put
No,
it in my
oh,
brain and then didn't write it
He was
down.
Daniel Widmore. Yes. Okay. I
Hmm.
very much know who that character is.
Well, this is him. Um,
He was in the last three seasons, which were the
mm,
not as good seasons. He was in four, five, and six, which is why I didn't immediately think of him. But yes, I very
gotcha.
much do know who he is.
Gotcha. Well, fun fact, he was also considered for the role of Norman Bates in the 1998 film that Vince Vaughn was in, which we didn't watch it, obviously.
Yeah, because
But if I had to guess, he would have done a better job than Vince Vaughn. I've not seen Vince Vaughn in it, but
probably, yeah. Mm.
my understanding of Vince Vaughn and Norman Bates, the two did not mix.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
yeah. So now we start our episode. I'm sorry, I've gotten a piece of hair like stuck in my lipstick somehow,
Oh, I
and
hate
it's
that.
really making me want to just like cut my face off. Um, and I won't do that.
Cut my
But
face
that
off.
is how I feel. Um, so we start with Jack and Will ice fishing, and they're talking very what's the word I'm looking for?
Cryptically?
Yes, but yeah, in a very obvious way. Um,
Yeah. Metaphorically?
that's the one. That's the one I
Okay.
wanted. Very metaphorically about predators and fishing and catching predators who aren't even trying to catch prey at that point.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're talking about Hannibal, but we don't say that out loud because God
Mm.
forbid. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I am readjusting and I'm trying very hard to stay balanced while doing so. So they go through this whole little shindig and we pop over to Hannibal,
Yeah.
who is preparing fish now. Turns out he's preparing the fish that they've just caught because Jack and Will are there for dinner. Um, and they're talking about, again, pretty cryptically about everything, or so they think. But Will's like, I thought I should, present some meat this time as opposed to,
Yeah. He was like, I thought I would take turns bringing the the food, and I was like, oh, gross.
yeah. And so they're all like being a little passive aggressive to each other, except Jack. He's not really being that passive aggressive. He's just kind of there.
Yeah.
But then they start talking about Chilton, and Hannibal's like, "Oh, yeah, we all missed it." And Will's like, "That's absolutely not what happened, but okay."
But
And
okay.
like, it's just the most passive aggressive dinner I've ever seen. Um, and then we go to a farm, and we get there, and one of the farm hands is talking about what's going on, and they're like, "I don't know what happened. I got here today, and all of the horses had hoods on, and one of them is dead." And they're like, oh, she wasn't doing so well because her foal was stillborn. And so she was already kind of like on the edge. And
Like
they're like,
depressed, yeah.
yeah. And so they're like, we kind of expected it. And he's like, oh, well, was it just the one? Like, did you perform the C-section for just the one? And they're like, C-section? I'm like, I think there's still one in there. Did you check for twins? Turns out there's a whole human body in there. Um,
That was so I have this problem where sometimes I watch episodes here at like my house, and
mhm,
sometimes I watch them at Dan's house, which means that I'm using Doug's Amazon. So I was like, shit, which episode am I on? So I looked at the description to make sure it was not an episode I had watched. And the
mhm.
description says, when a woman is found inside a horse. And I go, well, I for sure did not watch this one.
Yep, you sure didn't.
And then I did. And I was like, still wish I hadn't seen that.
Yeah, I didn't read the description as I don't.
Yeah.
Um,
You honestly,
but
but to be fair, I'm glad I was prepared for that.
I mean, I figured it out before they pulled her out of the horse, but I wouldn't
Yeah.
have known prior to the scene starting.
Yeah, no, I was glad that I was prepared for that because it
Mhm.
was disgusting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was one of the things that's disturbed me a little bit more
I
than
told my mom,
others.
this was the worst episode for me of the entire show so far.
Yeah,
Like there's been some messed up stuff, but I don't know why this one just like literally I gagged, like genuinely almost threw
yeah,
up in this episode, and I have not done that yet.
yeah. I felt the same way, and I couldn't figure out why because I was like, it wasn't even like it was one. It wasn't that like gory.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't that like. I mean, it was crazy psychologically, but like I was just like watching it. It's not that
Yeah.
out of bounds, and
No,
I don't know. But it hit a little
the
different.
time I threw up, almost threw up was the end. But yeah,
Yeah,
but this one really got me.
yeah. Um, but yeah. So then, of course, Hannibal and the FBI show up, and everyone is now on the scene, and they're discussing like, well, how does something like this happen? Like, what do you normally do to get this result? And Jack's like, could be a cult. It's kind of a culty thing, you know.
Yeah.
They sacrifice and use animals for weird stuff. And then they're like looking at it and they're like, the victim was strangled and then cocooned. Like, this was not quite the way. And then Hannibal is like, I have no idea what to tell you. He's like, no one thinks the way that this person does.
Right.
We have to go to someone that also doesn't think like other people. So obviously we got to bring in Will. Um, and then we have this really weird sequence, which I'm blaming on Vincenzo Natali because it happened twice and it just
Yeah,
it
I
was kind of
artistically did not like this episode in the same way that I
yeah,
hated most of the second and third season of Hemlock Grove.
right. Like I thought it was kind of like it kind of was nice, but it was so out of place.
Hated
Like
it.
it didn't fit with the show. It
Mm-mm.
felt like it should have been like a Nurse Jackie, you know,
Yeah, like it
like
was
in a Nurse Jackie drug scene. Like
yeah, it was I yeah.
yeah, it
The
was a strange thing.
the visual choices that made me dislike a lot of the end of Hemlock Grove
Hmm.
were very much what was happening this episode.
Yep. Hmm. Yeah, so we learned that all of this weird sequence where we don't really see what's going on, but someone's obviously being a little bit tortured,
Mhm.
is that this woman has been being attacked by her brother. And
Okay,
she is now
was this the weird teardrop martini
mhm,
thing? Yeah.
yeah. So it
Uh,
was very strange.
Yeah.
Mm. So she's now seeing Hannibal as a therapist because that's what you do. And
Did you also recognize her and get incredibly bothered that you couldn't place her?
uh-huh.
Yeah. She's one of the
But we're
steps.
gonna
She's one of the
what we're
stepsisters in the Selena Gomez Cinderella story. That's who she is.
I know her from something else because I've only seen that
Oh,
like once.
yeah, I
But
know.
um but we'll talk about her in
She
a
was also
couple of
one of the
weeks.
really obnoxious girls in Josie and the Pussycats, but
That could be what I know her from then. Um but yeah, I'll let you know in 2 weeks.
yeah.
So stay tuned. Um but yeah, so now she's seeing Hannibal and they're talking about it and she's like, my brother is, you know, redeemed himself. He was the sinner who's become a saint, and Hannibal is like encouraging her to kill him because apparently she had tried to kill him and was unsuccessful.
Yeah, and he's just
So
like you would have felt more satisfied if you'd gone through with it. What
yeah,
the
yeah.
fuck is happening?
So that's fun. Did I have an auto subscription? Oh my gosh, everything is happening at one time in my brain. So then we go to this again, another weird visual, but this sex scene of our friends Hannibal and Bloom. And at first I thought it was him sleeping with the new woman.
So did I.
And that is not what was happening.
Which
It
thank
was indeed,
God. Because
I know,
it's
like
bad
just
enough
another
that
thing.
one woman is dumb enough to sleep with him.
Right. And it's bad enough that he's already trying to like befriend one patient, not trying to sleep with another. Um, but yeah. So they start talking about Will and they're talking about like, you know, how they're recovering from grief and changing minds and learning all the things that's happening. And you can tell Bloom already like still thinks that Will is bad. She is like still convinced that he's not
But
quite right. And I was like, I feel like we've gotten past that. We've chalked everything up to encephalitis and being like everything he said turns out to have been true. I don't understand why
Right.
you're still so like on the fence about him.
Because she's
Um,
blinded by love.
she is blinded by love, and he tried to kill her love. So here we are. Um, so we go back to the lab, and we learned that the horse girl, whose name is Sarah, used to be a horse groomer. So she's worked there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we learn as we're going through this that she has a heartbeat, or so it seems,
That was
which
fucking
is
wild.
very strange for someone who's been dead for a few days. And
Yeah, just like
so,
a little bit.
yeah,
Not much.
but don't worry, it is not a heartbeat. When they cut her chest open, a bird flies out.
When I tell you, I jumped as if that bird was flying out of the TV at my
Mm-hmm.
face. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I have never flinched so much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's it's a lot. Um, so then we go over to Will, who's now at the stables, and he's doing his rewind because he's the only one who knows how to like read people's mind that nobody knows what they're doing.
Right.
And he goes through and he like knows the horses and he's like taking care of them, being kind to them. And he says that the killer was not trying to kill her. He was trying to give life back. It's a strange way to do it, but he's like the killer knew Sarah and he knew this horse and he knew that the horse was dying because it had a stillborn like foal. So this was his way of kind of giving back to both of them being like dying,
Yeah.
which I guess makes sense.
It no,
um
it doesn't. You don't have to pretend.
yeah, yeah, it's very strange logic, but he says that this killer thinks of himself as a healer, and so he's not killing them, he's healing them. It wasn't murder, it was grief.
Which is really sad.
Mhm. And so then we go to this guy who has a lot of animals in his house. And this is Peter. And Jack and Will go to talk to him. And they go inside and he just like doesn't acknowledge them. They're like, "Do you want to know why we're here? Like, do you want to know who we are?" And he's like, "Okay, who are you?" And he's like,
Right.
"Well, I'm the FBI." Like, kind of a big deal. And he is just like so out of left field, like not even know what's going on. Um, And so they start
Which,
telling about Sarah, and they're like, "Do you know Sarah?" And he's like, "No." And they're like, "Will you look at a picture?" And he's like, "No." And they're like, "Well, can you just look at it?" And he's like, "Well, I know who she is. I just like don't know her." And it's like,
yeah.
"Okay, well, then you answered the question wrong, but okay." And so then they're like, "Did you hear how she died?" And they start explaining it. And the first thing he asks is if the bird's okay. And Jack is just aghast. He's like blown away by everything that's happening. And okay, so they're talking to this guy, and he's like asking about if the bird is still alive, and he's more concerned about the animal. And he even says, he's like, I feel sad for Sarah. I feel sad for the horse, but I can't do anything about those things. I can help with the bird. Like,
Right.
and which is logic. That is how that works. And then he they walk out and Jack's like, "Oh, this guy's for sure like responsible. Like he's a little bit crazy and he like is doing all this stuff." And Will's like, "I don't think he did it."
No, but
Just
didn't they also figure out during that conversation that he'd been kicked in the head by a horse?
Yeah, I think it was that one that they found out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest, I know someone who's been kicked in the head by a horse. Well, no, she passed away a couple weeks ago. But she was my middle school friend. She What was that?
That's the new Zoom update. It does emojis. I've heard about it, but I hadn't seen it. I was supposed to
That
be able to like do the emoji and it pops up on the screen.
Well, apparently it does. Oh my God. I was about to
That's
talk about how
really
my
funny.
middle school French teacher died, and you thumbs up to me.
So sorry. That was the
Um,
improper timing for that.
no, my middle school French teacher, She passed away this year. She's old as shit.
Okay.
Like she was like 87 or something when she died. Um, but she had been kicked in the head by a horse. And she
And
was
so,
only still teaching because she sued the school district for saying she was too crazy to teach and said that that was discrimination
hmm,
on the basis of mental health. Um,
that feels like a physical ailment and a mental ailment.
um, yeah, so this guy and his like neuroses or whatever, because he'd been kicked in the head by a horse, I was like, no, for real. That legit. Buy it. 100%.
Yeah.
Did not question that.
He is a very meticulous actor, and so they say that he learns his parts really well. Um, oh, there's my napkin. I was like, she didn't bring me a napkin. She did. Um, but yeah, so he has a lot going on, but Will's like, he's not the
Yeah.
killer, but he knows the killer.
Yeah.
Um, Jack's just like, I don't know how you know anything that you know, but fine. So then we go to Will and Hannibal, and Will tells Hannibal, like, not to lie to him because they're going through their therapy that they're back at.
Right.
And Hannibal's like, okay, are you gonna like do the same for me? And Will's like, sure. Why not? Like, and so he starts asking him, he's like, do you fantasize about killing me? And he's like, yup,
Yep.
for sure. And he's like, oh, well, tell me about it. And he's like, how do you want to do it? He's like, with my
My
hands.
hands. He's like,
Yeah.
I thought we were past this. Bitch.
You framed me for murder and killed a lot of people. It takes a minute to get past that.
Well, it'll be a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Don't hold your breath. So they keep going. And then he's like, I don't really want to kill you anymore. I fantasize about killing you, but I don't really want to kill you anymore because you've finally become fascinating to me. And I was like, that is the sickest burn that Will could have ever said to Hannibal.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and so we go to this new crime scene, and there's just bodies galore. And Zeller comes up to Will and starts apologizing for everything. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I cannot believe that I didn't believe you. Like, I didn't listen. And Will's like, bro, it's fine. Look at the evidence. Like, I get it. I don't blame you. Like, and he's like,
Yeah.
no, but like, Beverly listened. And this would have happened to her if we would have listened to her. Like, blah, 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 blah. And of course, Will just like forgives him. He's like, it's, it's in the past.
Yeah.
And then we start learning about this crime scene we're in. And it turns out this is where the like dirt and stuff from Sarah's body came from. And she there were 15 other graves that were also there. So whoever killed Sarah theoretically also killed these other 15 bodies that have been buried there.
Right.
So that's good news bears. And so then we go to who we've learned now is Margot and Hannibal. And this is where she starts talking again about how evil her brother is and how people think he's recovered. And Hannibal's like, well, what do you think? And she's like, I don't think he's ever going to stop. And he's like, well, if you can't do it yourself, you just have to find someone else to kill him. Like,
Yeah.
obviously that's the solution. So this is going somewhere that is not good for anyone, but we only
No.
see it in pieces. So we'll find out, I guess, what happens. Um, and we go back to Will and Peter. Will has gone to visit him alone. And they're talking about the bird and how, he knows all this stuff and trying to figure out where Peter's head is. And he's like, do you think the bird is Sarah? And he's like, no.
No.
Like, I get how this works.
Yeah.
But I think the bird is, still a new life. It's just not like Sarah. It's just like how it is.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking about, and he was like, oh, is there someone else you see when these things happen? And at first I was like, oh, is this guy going to end up having like split personality? Like, are we going to go in that
No,
direction?
I didn't think that at all. I thought it was going to be Hannibal was going to know him.
We'll see. I thought it was too much if it made it this episode Hannibal too. Like,
I thought it was Hannibal was his shadow.
yeah,
I
which
do
is
see I do
fair.
see how that would be too quick to like
Yeah,
jump to somebody else, especially with all the weird Margot shit going on. But my when he Will was like, "Do you see a shadow?" My immediate gut reaction was Hannibal.
yeah. Well, also like the way Hannibal reacted to the crime scene was almost more with like joy than like remembrance, I guess. Like he was so like excited to have found someone else that kept him guessing, but it didn't really feel
Yeah,
like it was,
that's
his crime
fair. That's
scene.
totally fair.
Um,
Because he genuinely needed them to talk to Will because he didn't know the
yeah,
answer, which is yeah, that makes sense.
just few and far between for him. Um, yeah, so they're talking, and he's like, "There's someone that's a shadow," and when he's like, "Oh, you see someone else," um, where did I? And he starts talking about it more, and he's like, "Oh, you brought poetry to her death. Like, you knew her, you knew what was happening, and you couldn't do anything about it. So you decided to find a way to kind of like honor her." And then we jump over to Bloom, and who we learn is Peter's social worker. Um, and turns out this is who Peter has blamed for this is who Peter has blamed for killing everyone. Um I lost my note. I'm having the most distractible day in my brain.
Yeah.
I do apologize. Anyways, he's being very defensive. And he's like, but he's trying to do it in a way that makes it sound like he's not being defensive. He's just like, I don't know why I'm here. Like, this is all insane. Peter is crazy. Like, I don't know why
Yeah.
I'm here on one crazy guy's word. Like, this means nothing. And Bloom is actually doing her job very well for once and like leaning into like the emotions and not trying to make it like accusatory. Um, and then that we pan out and they're out and Hannibal and Will and Jack are talking about his lack of empathy. And Will just says his eyes are dead. And he also starts talking to Bloom and he's like, I didn't know Sarah, but I knew of her because Peter was obsessed with her, which was probably true, but
Right.
beside the point. And so then we go back to Peter and he's walking into his house and all of the animals' cages have been opened and his whole like room has been disrupted. And so he's obviously terrified. And he goes into the stables and we see one of the horses have been murdered, like bludgeoned in the head, murdered, not just like kind of killed. And then the social worker shows up and we learn that he is setting him up and he is going to say how he went crazy because this is the horse that kicked him in the head. And so it's like he had, a bone to pick. And they go through this whole thing and he's got the bloody mallet. And then we jump over to Will and Hannibal, who are in the car, and we learn they're going to visit Peter to see what more they can do. And they find him with the horse. And at this point, it's just Peter and the horse. Um, so then we learn very quickly that he put the social worker inside of the horse, just like he did with Sarah's body. However, the social worker is still alive. He has not been murdered. He has just been placed inside of the horse, which is very
That
upsetting.
was the And so when the social worker crawls out of the horse, that's when I
Mhm.
literally went and he was like
Yeah.
coughing. That's when I almost threw up. Like I could not watch that part.
Yeah, that was definitely the worst part of it. Um, um, he so Peter's talking before he crawls out though. He's like, he deserves to die. Like I think I hate him. I think he really deserves to die because while he has a lot going on, it's clear that his moral standard is still there,
Yeah.
and so he's like isn't the one killing people, obviously. Um, but he's so caught up in this, and Will's like, he might deserve to die, but you don't deserve to kill him. Like that should not be on you.
Yeah.
And so then the social worker climbs out of the horse, and Hannibal's there, just wandering around as he does, so casually. And he just tells him that he should crawl back in there. He's like, if you know what's best for you, I would just get back in there. And as soon as he like pans over, this was a good visual shot. As soon as he pans over, Will's standing there with a gun on him.
Yeah.
And we see Will kind of devolve because we haven't seen Will quite in the same way, kill to kill. Um, or for other people as much other than when he shot Gideon, who didn't
Right.
die. But so Hannibal's telling him, and he's like, it's not going to feel the same if you do this for someone else. Like, you have to do this for yourself. Um, and then he's like talking him through it, trying to be like, are you going to do it? Are we not doing it? I don't know if this is right for you. And then at the last second, Hannibal grabs the gun and doesn't let him shoot him. Um, but in this moment, he looks like the proudest dad because he's like, every day, new surprises. I learned new things about you. And it was just the wildest thing. Um, and that's where we end.
Yeah.
Thoughts, feelings, concerns?
So many. I like I said, this episode was visually more disturbing and unsettling than a lot that we've watched, and also story-wise not as gripping as a lot that we've watched. So I just kind of felt
Mm-hmm.
really eh after watching it.
Yeah, it was like I said. I think it's going to be a setup, and it's of course our like new two-person arc that we get apparently at the same time every season.
Yeah.
So we have the social work, we have Peter now, and then you know we're opening new stuff up. We're gonna have to figure out what's going on with Margot and her brother and how that progresses, and if that's someone that Hannibal's gonna latch on to, or if she's just a two like episode arc or whatever.
Yeah.
We'll see. Um, but yeah, just a lot going on without really anything happening. But yeah, so I don't really have any trivia for you. They said that the bird that came out of Sarah was meant to be like a starling, so it's meant to be a nod to Clarice
It was.
Starling.
It absolutely was a starling.
Yeah,
I knew that just because I know birds.
right. Yeah, yeah. Um, but otherwise, there wasn't anything else that was like trivia for this episode.
I thought Margot was supposed to somehow be Clarice for a hot second, just because it was so out of
mm,
nowhere until he said her
hmm
name, and I was like, that makes way more sense. But like,
Well, at first, I thought Margot was the girl in the horse, and we were getting like a backstory, and
yeah,
then they were very different people.
yeah.
So that was not the case. Yeah. So what do you think is gonna happen next episode?
Um, I could not tell you. This was so unrelated to everything that happened before it that I have no predictions.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna have some kind of like shootout between the two, like Peter and his social worker, or if like we're gonna lock up the social worker and Peter's gonna like be fine, or I don't know.
I have no
Yeah,
idea.
who's to say? I assume we'll figure out some more about Margot. We'll figure out what her deal is.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a little worried after this episode that we're gonna see Will devolve into more of a killer than not a
Yeah.
killer. That's a little upsetting, but we'll see. It could just be a little device they're using.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so who do you want to punch in the face then?
You know, this is hard because there's nobody I like really at
Mhm.
all. Um, but probably the social worker. Like,
Yeah, for sure. He sucks.
yeah.
Um, so I probably would have gone with him too. So in that case, I'm gonna have to go with Hannibal and his trying to get Will to kill for fun, I guess.
I'm trying to get
Um,
Margot to kill
yeah,
too, like whatever.
yeah, he's got a lot. He's got too much going on. Um, so who's your MVP?
My MVP is um Flotsam. Because I no the two guys who I make up names for them every week, Flotsam and Jetsam, the Tweedles.
Oh, sure, 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 sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
For apologizing to Will and like taking like showing that he felt something about what happened to Beverly and how the whole thing went down
Mhm.
and yeah, all that. So
Yeah. So Brian Seller is your pick.
yeah.
Um,
Thanks, because I literally,
yeah,
no matter how many times you tell me
you
their
got
name,
it.
no matter how many times you tell me their name, A, I'm not going to remember, and B, even when I do remember, I won't remember which one is which is why I
Right.
come up with a new weird
Duo name for them.
henchman duo for them every week.
Yeah. Um,
Next week, I'll probably call them Jasper and Horace. Like, who knows?
sure. I'll be prepared.
Yeah.
Um, so agreed, no one really was great, but I think I'm gonna go with Peter because he at least did try to pay homage to Sarah, even if it was in a very strange and unnecessary way.
Right.
And he did give up the social worker without really any prodding. Like
Yeah.
he did the right thing. It's not gonna go well for him, I already know, but
Oh, yeah.
he did the right thing. So kudos. Um, but yeah, so I think that is our episode this week. So if you have any thoughts, feelings, concerns, etc., feel free to email us, deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can find us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And we will see you for our next Sci Fi Sunday, which will be something.
Bye.
Bye.